For today's video, I wanted to do something different, talking about a game that I've recently played called Tiny Toon Scary Dreams. It was developed by Treasure, a Japanese company well known for games like Sin and Punishment and Gunstar Heroes, and stars Buster Bunny, uh, who is knocked out by Montana Max with his dream zap and has to save his friends who are also taken in their dream. It released in 2002 in Europe and in 2005 for North America, but mysteriously it never really had an official release. So if you want to find a physical copy, it's actually pretty hard to come by, or it will cost you like a hefty amount. And the question I want to have is it really worth paying that much for a game developed by a company of such high quality work as Sin and Punishment, Gunstar Heroes, Alien Soldier, and Astro Boy? Well, let's see how the game is. Once you start the game, you're greeted to the title screen where you can start your game, continue your game, check the options, and exit the game, which brings you to the game's demo. You can also rebind the controls to make it where you have your jump as either the A button or the up button on the D-pad, which I'll explain later. When you start the game, you're able to choose from a partner of 8 to use in the battle. The game's combat system is very simple. All attacks are mapped either to the B button, which is your main attack to use, or the A or R button to do your partner special move. Most of the time in stages you're just spamming the B button and having your partners tagged to do different combos that you can make. Some of these combos include pressing down on the D-pad twice and pressing the B button to do stuff like jackhammer for Buster, as well as pressing down and right or left, the direction you're facing, to do the shopping cart combo. It's a satisfying combat system. It's a lot of fun to juggle enemies and send them flying, but the slowdown really hurts the experience, and the level design or lack thereof makes the stages very uninteresting to play. Each of the characters have different moves to choose from. For example, Babs uses a tennis racket, Plucky uses iron weight, and Dizzy uses a tornado move. You can choose from these characters at the start of the stage, but once you get further into the stage, the only way to change it is to start, exit the stage, continue the game, and switch on them, which is very baffling. It's fun to try out the different characters, but overall, from the 2 playthroughs that I've done, I only stuck with Babs, Plucky, and Dizzy because they were really overpowered. The assist characters also have their own special moves. For example, pressing down and forward for Babs can do a big tennis ball, while pressing down, and the attack button for Babs can do multiple tennis balls. It's fun to try out the different moves, but as I said earlier, there isn't really much to the system. Graphically, for an early GBA game coming out in 2002, it actually looks really nice. It's a very colorful game, expressive of the Tiny Toon style, and it looks rather nice on the screen. The only issue I have is that once you see the bigger character sprites, they look very pixelated, and there's a lot of color palette swaps that they use for the characters, and overall it just leaves the experience kind of alright. And like, another issue I guess I have is that the backgrounds are rather uninteresting. They don't have much parallax scrolling, it's just one background, and when you get later on into the game where you start seeing like similar background, it just makes it uninteresting. And like, most of the special hardware power of the GBA is put towards the sprite rotation than anything, and the large sprites, which is fine, but it's nothing to write home about. Actually, the soundtrack is really well done. It's very catchy, upbeat, and was done by the composer of the Simpsons arcade game from Konami. The main tune I liked was the Forest theme. That song I always play a lot because it's really catchy. Although surprisingly, the Tiny Toons team is nowhere in the game, which is very baffling. And overall, I think the music is pretty good. There's some good bops, and for early GBA, it's also rather nice to listen to. When it doesn't wear itself out too thin, I especially like the final boss theme, which has the trumpets that sound like from Generation 3 of Pokemon on the GBA. That was surprising. I recommend giving it a listen, especially if you like Treasure's work. It's not as good as say Sin and Punishment, which I think is my favorite soundtrack from them, but it's a great listen. Now for my biggest issue that this game has is that all stages you don't restore your health at all. Once you die, you have to restart the stage from the beginning, and some of the later stages can be really frustrating, especially on normal mode, which is surprisingly difficult. Hard mode is even more difficult, but normal being this difficult is kind of lame. Although the game really wants you to exploit the game's combat system. For example, the shopping cart combo gives you invincibility frames, and it does feel satisfying to nail the combos. It's just kind of upsetting that they made a game this difficult. It's not even like it's fair. There's a lot of like enemy sponges, and especially the bosses, which I did not show in this video for spoiler warnings, or this I don't want to show it. But yeah, they get really spongy, and it just makes the experience not fun at all. Once you die, you start from the beginning, and especially the latter stages, which are just elevator action stages, it's just annoying. Game's length is rather short. There's only 4 worlds, each with 2 stages and a boss, so the game goes by pretty quickly, which is similar to other treasure games like Sin and Punishment, which only had 3 stages split up into sections, so I guess I say I was not shocked how short this game was. And I think it's for the better. This game, with the combat system, just drags on and on. And there's no really room to breathe unless you use the game's password system to write down the password for the next stage to give yourself a break, which is fine. And not only that, it's I think pretty good for like portable sessions. You can get stages done rather quickly, like in like 3 minutes to like I think the max feels like 6 or 5 around that. So it's not too bad. You can definitely do worse, like Dynasty Warriors, which have stages that last like forever. Scary Dreams was the first Tiny Toons game in development by Treasure during the time. For some reason they got the Tiny Toons license even though the show was done at its peak in around 1992, which is rather odd that they'd make a game in 2002. And they actually had one more planned, a game for the PS2 and GameCube based off the previous PS1 title, Rakuga Showtime, which was a arena fighter with a hand-drawn art style where you go around a map and you bling yourself to do different combos. And they're absolutely going to do that with the Tiny Toons license, but that ended up being cancelled. And in this case, Scary Dreams North America release didn't really happen. It just came out like near the end of 2005 at certain outlets and I think online retailers. But once that initial print run came out, the game was basically wiped from existence. And when you talk about Treasure GBA games, they always bring up Gunstar and Astro Boy, but never Tiny Toons. And once people try and look online for the price, it explains why. If you have any plans of playing Tiny Toons Scary Dreams, I highly recommend searching up a GameFAQs guide on the game's combos so you can learn them beforehand, because the game never teaches you it. That, and it only says it in the game's manual, and considering the game's hard-to-find release already, not a lot of people are going to look at the manual to know to do this combo and that combo. Also, I recommend playing this before Astro Boy because Astro Boy actually builds off the foundation of the Tiny Toons combat system. Not only that, but Tiny Toons is a much shorter game than Astro Boy. Also, I do recommend trying the game at least on easy mode just because normal mode can be rather difficult. If you do want to try normal mode, as I said earlier, definitely check out the game's combo list because you're gonna need to exploit it, especially in the fine stages, which get ridiculously hard to the point where I spent like 30 minutes doing the very last stage just because the enemy entourage and damage I was taking. My final thoughts on Tiny Toons Scary Dreams for the Game Boy Advance is that it's not that great of a licensed game, and it's not that good of a treasure game, which is unfortunate considering their background doing Astro Boy later, and the Ronald McDonald's game. I do, however, recommend trying it out. it's a rather interesting game, especially for the Game Boy Advance, which doesn't really have that many beat 'em up style games, mainly just JRPGs, platformers, and SNES ports, so it was actually quite fun to play in some areas, yet frustrating in other areas. Definitely recommend checking out via emulation than actual hardware just because it's really expensive and just not worth the price at all. And if you do enjoy it, that's great. I think I'd like to try it on hard mode one day, but as of now, with my 2 playthroughs on normal, I think I'm okay. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe, like the video, and share it. If not, tell me what I can improve in the comments, and thank you for watching. I hope you enjoy. Goodbye.